Though the night is long, I will find the strength. Why did you have to leave me here?
Morning arrived slowly in the small coastal town, as if the sun itself hesitated to rise over lives that carried silent struggles. The sea breeze brushed softly against the wooden huts, carrying the smell of salt and distant rain. In one of those humble homes lived a boy whose heart was far bigger than the world he had been given. Liam Santos, just 13, stepped outside barefoot. The ground was cool, still wet from last night's drizzle. His small bag hung over his shoulder, worn, faded, but reliable. Every day, before the rest of the town woke, he would begin his quiet routine. He wasn't like other boys his age. While others played by the shore, Liam carried responsibilities that didn't fit his fragile frame. Inside their dimly lit home, his mother, Maria, rested on a bamboo bed. Her once strong voice, her gift, her joy, had weakened over the years. She had been a hotel singer, someone who could brighten a room with her melodies. But sickness took her strength, leaving Liam to become the pillar of their tiny world. The boy glanced back at her gently, making sure she was sleeping comfortably. With every step he took away from home, he wished he could do more for her. But all he had was his voice, and a hope he never allowed to fade. The town was quiet as Liam walked through the narrow pathways. When he reached the small marketplace, he stepped onto a wooden crate, his makeshift stage. The wood creaked softly under his weight. Vendors were setting up their stalls, and the scent of fresh fish mixed with warm bread filled the air. Liam closed his eyes and began to sing. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried something deeper, warmth, honesty, a longing shaped by nights of worry and days of perseverance. People passing by slowed their steps. Some smiled, some nodded, some dropped a few coins into the can beside him. Others walked on, lost in their own battles. Yet Liam never stopped. Every note he sang felt like a prayer drifting through the morning light, a soft message asking life to be a little kinder. As the sun climbed higher, Liam packed his things. He collected the coins carefully, thinking only of the medicines his mother needed. He started walking home, unaware that fate had quietly placed a letter at their doorstep, an envelope that carried a chance neither of them ever dreamed possible. The morning the letter arrived, the sky over Liam's town carried a strange brightness. It was as if the world itself sensed that something extraordinary was about to begin. Maria held the envelope with trembling hands. Even before opening it, she felt a shift inside her, like hope knocking on a door that had long been closed. The letter announced that a video Liam had once recorded for a local charity event had reached people far beyond their village. Someone from abroad had forwarded it to the producers of America's Got Talent. It was an invitation for Liam to audition. A chance that felt too big for their small world. Maria looked at her son with eyes full of fear and wonder. Liam stood quietly, unsure whether to believe such a miracle. But deep inside, something stirred, a spark he had never felt before. He had spent years singing for coins, for food, for survival. But now, for the first time, he might sing for a dream. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and prayers. Neighbors brought what little they could offer, food for the journey, blessings, and whispers of hope. The entire town felt invested in the boy who had carried so much on his young shoulders. When they reached the airport, everything felt unreal. The bright lights, the giant screens, the rush of travelers, it was a world Liam had only seen on small, flickering televisions. He held his mother's hand tightly, afraid of getting lost in the sea of unfamiliar faces. Maria, though weak, stood tall beside him, hiding her worries behind a gentle strength only a mother could carry. The flight itself felt like stepping into another universe. Liam watched clouds drift past the window as if the sky was welcoming him into a future that once seemed unreachable. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a life where his mother didn't have to struggle, where their home wasn't filled with worry, where music didn't carry the weight of survival. When they landed in America, everything was bigger, louder, brighter. Liam's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and fear. As they reached the AGT backstage area, he saw performers practicing, stretching, adjusting costumes. Some seemed confident. Some nervous. All of them older, taller, more experienced. Yet something inside Liam remained steady. The morning the letter arrived, the sky over Liam's town carried a strange brightness. It was as if the world itself sensed that something extraordinary was about to begin. Maria held the envelope with trembling hands. Even before opening it, she felt a shift inside her, like hope knocking on a door that had long been closed. The letter announced that a video Liam had once recorded for a local charity event had reached people far beyond their village. Someone from abroad had forwarded it to the producers of America's Got Talent. It was an invitation for Liam to audition. A chance that felt too big for their small world. Maria looked backstage at AGT, the air felt heavy with anticipation. Bright lights flickered from every corner, casting long shadows across the floor. Performers whispered to themselves, some pacing, some shaking nervously, others standing still as statues. And in the middle of all this noise stood Liam, small, quiet, steady. He held his mother's hand before stepping forward, taking a slow breath that filled his chest with courage he didn't know he had. The stage assistant guided him toward the entrance. Each step felt like walking into a dream, one he didn't dare imagine too deeply, afraid it might slip away. When the curtain parted, a wall of lights hit him. The stage stretched wide, seeming endless beneath his small feet. The audience sat in rows that climbed upward like waves, full of curious faces waiting to be moved, entertained, or surprised. Their voices merged into a soft hum that vibrated through the air. The judges sat in front, their presence powerful and intimidating. Simon Cowell leaned back, sharp eyes studying the boy. Nothing about his expression revealed what he expected, but Liam could feel the weight of that silent gaze. A hush fell across the room. Even the cameras seemed to lower their sound, as if the universe leaned closer to witness what this fragile voice might bring. Liam stepped toward the center of the stage. He felt the heat of the spotlights wrap around him like a blanket. He imagined his mother somewhere backstage, holding her breath, praying for strength on his behalf. His heart pounded softly inside his chest, not out of fear, but out of purpose. With a slow inhale, he closed his eyes. And then, he began. The first note floated into the air like a feather released into the wind. It wasn't loud, but it carried a truth so pure that the room seemed to freeze. The audience leaned forward. The judges shifted in their seats. The second note came stronger, filled with longing, shaped by sleepless nights, and softened by a boy's enduring hope. His voice rose and fell like waves, gentle yet powerful, reaching corners of the theater untouched by sound before. Something in his tone carried a story. A story of a boy who had carried the weight of an entire household, who had sung through hunger, through sickness, through fear, through endless days of uncertainty. As the melody deepened, the room transformed. As Liam moved into the most emotional part of his song, something powerful began to shift inside the massive theater. His voice, fragile yet strong, rose like a small flame in a dark room, soft at first, then glowing brighter with every beat of his heart. The audience watched him with an intensity rarely seen on talent stages. It wasn't the kind of attention given to a performer. It was the kind of attention that only truth could capture. People felt something stirring inside them, distant memories, forgotten hopes, quiet wounds they never shared with anyone. Liam sang as though every note carried a piece of his soul. His voice trembled at moments, not from fear, but from the weight of what he had lived. There were nights he had sung beside his mother's bedside, believing his voice could ease her pain. There were mornings he had walked miles just to make enough for a meal. These experiences shaped a tone no training could create. The camera slowly moved across the judges' table. Their expressions softened, their eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and tenderness. But Simon Cowell, his reaction was different. At first, he sat still, arms folded, eyes fixed on the boy before him. He tried to maintain his usual sharp composure. But the deeper Liam went into the song, the more something cracked inside Simon's carefully guarded heart. It began with a small shift in his breathing. Then his eyes glistened under the bright stage lights. He looked away for a moment, as if trying to find a place to hide the emotions rising too quickly. For a man who had heard thousands of voices, something about this child's song cut deeper than any performance before. It wasn't just the skill. It was the innocence. The sincerity. The reminder of how pure music once felt before fame, pressure, and expectation complicated everything. As Liam reached the emotional peak of the song, Simon's eyes filled completely. A single tear escaped, unplanned, unguarded, impossible to hide. He wiped it quickly, but another followed, and then another, until he no longer tried to hold them back. The audience noticed. The judges noticed. But no one made a sound. Because in that moment, everyone understood, this wasn't just a performance. It was healing unfolding right in front of them. A young boy from a small town had touched a heart believed to be unshakable. When Liam held his final note, the theater erupted, not in noise, but in emotion. People rose to their feet instinctively. Hands covered mouths. Tears streamed down faces. It was a wave of human connection, sudden, overwhelming, pure. Simon stood slowly, his eyes still wet. His expression carried something rare, gratitude. Liam had awakened a part of him he had forgotten, the part that believed in miracles, sincerity, and the power of a single voice. The music faded. But the moment stayed suspended in time, etched into every heart in the room. Backstage, the noise of applause still echoed faintly through the walls, vibrating like a distant heartbeat. Liam stepped off the stage slowly, as though he were waking from a dream he wasn't ready to leave. His small chest moved with deep breaths, each one filled with disbelief and quiet relief. Maria stood waiting with trembling hands pressed against her heart. When she saw her son walking toward her, her whole face softened. Tears surged to her eyes, not from sorrow this time, but from pride so overwhelming it nearly stole her breath. She gathered him into her arms, holding him with a tenderness shaped by years of prayer and fear. Liam sank into her embrace, suddenly aware of how much he had carried alone, and how light he felt now that the moment had finally arrived. Behind them, crew members moved quickly, but their eyes lingered on the pair. Some smiled, touched by the sincerity of their bond. Others wiped their eyes quietly before continuing with their tasks. It was rare, even in a place filled with talent and dreams, to witness a moment so pure and unguarded. Liam felt warmth settle in his chest. He didn't fully understand what he had just done, or why the entire theater had risen to its feet, or why Simon Cowell, a man known for his strength and sharpness, had cried. All he knew was that something inside him felt open, as if the world had finally heard a voice he had kept hidden for so long. Then, through the soft commotion backstage, Simon appeared. He walked slower than usual, his expression different from the one the world recognized. There was no armor, no distance, no judgment, just a quiet tenderness that could only come from a place of genuine emotion. His eyes were still slightly red, his posture gentler, softened by a feeling he couldn't disguise even if he tried. He stopped beside Liam and Maria, offering them a moment of acknowledgement that spoke louder than words ever could. It wasn't the approval of a judge. It wasn't the excitement of a television moment. It was something human, one heart recognizing another. Maria's eyes filled again, overwhelmed that a man who had seen greatness around the world stood humbled before her son. Liam lowered his gaze shyly, feeling a warmth spreading through him, like sunlight breaking through clouds. The world outside continued buzzing, cameras recording, audience cheering, producers celebrating. But in this small corner backstage, there was only stillness. A moment suspended between three people whose lives had briefly intersected in a way none of them expected. As Liam and his mother stepped away, the weight of their struggles seemed lighter. A door had opened, a door they once believed was locked forever. And for Simon, the moment remained etched in his heart. A reminder that sometimes, the smallest voices carried the greatest power. A reminder that sincerity could still break through the noise of the world. In that quiet backstage hallway, two lives began to change, one rising from Ha.